Right, let's get into our first discussion of the day now. Since it began its intervention in the foreign exchange market in February 2017, the Central Bank of Nigeria has injected about $25 billion into the Forex market.
Yes, and the CBN has only recently injected $210 million into the interbank foreign exchange market. Now, these interventions are to sustain liquidity in the Forex market, as well as strengthen the Naira against other foreign currencies, especially the dollar. The move has also helped eliminate the pressure on the Forex market, ensuring exchange rate stability. But for how long will these interventions continue? That's the fundamental question that our guests hopefully will be able to give us answers to this morning. With us in the studio is a business consultant, Vivian Annie. Also in the studio is a senior lecturer in strategy, corporate governance and risk management, Lagos Business School, Franklin Ngu. Good morning. Good to have you.
Good morning. Good morning, yes, lady and
Good
gentlemen.
to have you. Yeah. We'll, of course, start with the lady. And let's start from that very fundamental question as to the sustainability of these interventions by the CBN, in the Forex market. Is it something we really can do for as long as possible? Or how long is it really going to take for the Naira to find its feet?
We can't do it for too long. These are quick fixes and not a long-term strategy, and I'll explain. The whole issue of stability, and when you use the word stability,
yes,
stability does not mean that your currency is at the value you want it to be. Because your currency could be very highly priced, but that's not where you want it to be. When I look at stability, I look at it more in terms of planning. Okay, fine. The Naira today is about 365 million yes, Naira to the dollar in a certain market. Officially, the one for exporters and importers, 360. Then the government has one that they call the NAFEX, which is for certain sectors, sectors that they want to shield from high exchange rates, yes, which is about 305. If you talk about the stability, when you look at the two exchange rates, there's quite a huge gap. So when I think of the word stable, I think of currencies like the renminbi, that's the yuan, the Chinese yuan. When over quite a number of years, you'd see that, even when there are fluctuations, they're very slight. And you also think of the dollars and the pound sterling. In Nigeria's case, that's not the same. Is our currency overvalued? Yes or no. Is our currency undervalued? Yes or
yes
no.
And no.
But one thing we can all agree on is that it is too volatile. The fluctuations are too wide. Even officially, they're too wide. Over the years, they have been too wide. Like I said, these are quick fixes which are not sustainable in the long run. And I'm going to talk about forces of demand and supply. There are two ways to address an issue, to address stability. You're either looking at, you want to look at the issue of demand. Can you reduce demand to sort of guarantee some smooth flow in the market? Or can you increase supply to be able to achieve the same thing? If you look at demand, you now start to ask yourself, what is fueling the demand in foreign exchange in Nigeria? You look at sectors, there are certain sectors, unfortunately, there's nothing much we can do about in the short term. And maybe I'll explain this a bit more later. But there are certain sectors that are easier to tackle. When I use the word easier, relatively, I'm not saying that they're easy to tackle, but relative to the sectors that are a bit more difficult. Look at education. Look at medical tourism. That's the word that we've been using. Education
costs Nigeria about $1 billion every year.
Precisely. Now you ask yourself, why is the middle class Nigerian's dream to send his kids abroad to school? Why? It's a middle class dream. You even see people who are practically starving. But that sending their kids abroad is something they're not willing to negotiate. Why is it that none of us feels confident enough? And when I say us, I mean even the people here on this table. Why is it that when we get sick and we suspect it's a very serious sickness, we start to look at India, we start to look at Dubai, we start to look at countries, any country but Nigeria? When you ask yourself these questions, the answers we all know, staring at us in the face, but the issue is that we don't want to address what is causing this. I don't know if I have enough time to go into this.
There'll be time. Let me bring Franklin in here. Now, the CBN has done everything possible to ensure that the Naira is stable within a certain amount when it comes to relation to the dollar, as the case may be. Before then, Everyone wakes up every morning. If you want to change the dollar, you call. You have to call to find out what's the rate today. Tomorrow you will call, what's the rate today? In the evening you call, what's the rate? Because you know that it's not the same. Now, relatively, the Naira has been, you know, on the average has been stable. But at the end of the day, what benefit does it bring to the economy or Nigerians to have a stable or relatively stable Naira? How does it help the economy differently?
There are too many benefits.
Okay.
And let me start by agreeing with Vivian that it's not sustainable.
All right.
In the sense that, of course, you notice as long as you try to stabilize the Naira by injecting dollar into the market, the reserves go down. So it's not, and of course, you know, currently our reserve is about $40-something billion. So as we continue to import, as we continue to demand for foreign exchange, it doesn't look very, very stable. But in terms of the benefit, it means that somebody who is planning to do a business in Nigeria can have an idea of what the exchange rate will be in the maybe medium, short term, or long term basis. And the person can now say, okay, the person can properly plan and say, okay, this is how much I'm supposed to use to do. So he can now have a kind of forecast of what it will cost him and the rest of it. It can also, the consumers also will have an idea of how much it's going to cost them in terms of disposable income, in terms of how much they're going to use, and also. And in terms of also inflation as well. So people that are bringing goods into Nigeria will say, okay, we bought it at this so rate. But if it's very volatile, you might buy a bottle of water 100 naira today, tomorrow it will become 150 or 200 naira, as the case may be. But what we are supposed to do first is to say, okay, we've been injecting dollar into the market. Is this a short term, and what is the medium term, and what is the long term? So I thought that when the intervention started, it's going to be for a short term. But now it's
looking
like it
long
continues.
Exactly. And it doesn't look, nobody really knows when it's going to stop. But the question, as Vivian mentioned, is that we have to look at the demand for foreign exchange and the supply for foreign exchange. And also, okay, the areas of demand that we have and the areas of supply that we have, how can we manage both the demand and supply side? So in the demand side, of course, the main reason why we have this high exchange rate is that we import refined petroleum, which takes a large chunk of our demand and the importation. So the question is, how can we reduce the demand for foreign exchange and possibly increase our demand, our foreign exchange? So how can we increase our export? And of course, you know, both import and import determines whether you are going to have a surplus or whether you're going to have a deficit. As long as we remain an import-dependent country, then we will continue to have a foreign exchange.
And that doesn't seem likely to end anytime soon. I mean, whatever measures we're going to take would be truly long-term. I mean, let's even talk about some of the measures that the CBN has tried to put in place. The 41 items excluded from the Forex list. And of course, you did mention that our Forex reserve is going down, even as we dip our hands into the till to stabilize the Naira. So are we saying that so far, the measures taken by CBN, maybe you'd want to even, you know, read some of them out, including these 41 items excluded from Forex. Have they not been working at all? If we continue to shore up the Naira, I mean.
You know, the thing is about foreign exchange management, like he's reiterated, is not one tactic. It's a strategy. If you look at countries who were able to crawl out of the deep end, and today we all admire and look up to, China, there was a deliberate strategy about foreign exchange. And their own strategy is to keep the price of the renminbi lower than what it is really worth. It has worked out beautifully well for them. Their economy is an export-driven economy. The value chains from a lot of industrialized companies shifted to China, meaning the manufacturing. While the high-tech remained in the industrial countries, the real core manufacturing shifted to China because they had established areas of comparative advantage. First of all, it was cheaper labor. Later on, they moved into infrastructure. The Chinese have made building a bridge look as if it's child's play. I actually saw a video where they were building a road, and literally overnight, you know these roads we keep talking about, have endless talk shops about in Nigeria. Literally overnight, the Chinese were able to build one.
Exactly. So especially when you even look at the Belt and Road project that they have ongoing now, which some, you know, are saying this is really too ambitious.
Precisely.
Anyway. Yeah.
But then the truth of it is that you have to dream big. They say shoot for the stars. Even if you don't get there, you're going to get much higher than you are. But the problem, I think, with us here in Nigeria is that we do not see foreign exchange management as a long-term strategy thing. We think it's about quick fixes. It won't work. Look, let me tell you something. If you look at the international rankings for universities, every year consistently, I think I've been tracking them for the last 10 years or so. Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, Oxford, you know, it's almost as if they're playing tag,
Yale, exactly,
right? They're
exactly.
just exchanging. And then you now say to yourself, and a lot of the schools, when you get there, you meet very brilliant Nigerian professors.
Yes.
Professors that, you know, people you listen to and you're like, wow.
Wow, are they Nigerian?
And then you now say, you're coming out of Nigeria, yet our educational system, except for few bright spots like the Lagos Business School, our educational system is nothing to write home about. And then you now start saying to yourself, look, if every parent in China and all over the world, I'm using China now because China, the average, just like Nigeria, a middle-class Chinese dream too is to send their kids to school in an international school, just like Nigeria. You see their parallels. Now, you now say when a Chinese man is looking through the rankings every year, he's in Harvard, Cambridge, Oxford, at times Yale, Stanford, MIT, depending on what you want to study. And his dream is, look, I want my kids to go to those schools. What stops our government? I'm not a believer in big government, but what I think is that the government should create an enabling environment and ascribe the right values to certain actions so that people have the incentive to take those actions. What stops the government from saying, look, any school in Nigeria that can break through a certain ranking every year in either the FT Times or the QS or blah, 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 and all the ones that exist, will get an incredible grant. I tell you, watch private sector innovate once they hear that. What even stops government from saying the grant won't come from us alone? Let us approach the foundations, Dangote, Theophilus Danchuma, Tony Elumelu, blah, 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 and come up with a pool of funds, maybe worth $100 million. Look.
You know, you're touching actually, not to cut you, you're already touching on a subject we're actually going to discuss this morning, talking about, you know, the poor funding for universities. Obviously, with what you've said, there is a very, very strong link between strategic investment in education and development that will, of course, have, you know, an effect on diversifying the economy and diversifying the revenue base.
That is why they often say that education
the human capital
is the foundation. The moment you get
capital.
education right, you get every aspect of life right. But frankly, let me bring you in here. Just like Vivian said, Nigeria has some of the brightest economists, financial experts, you know, tactical economists all over the place, not just in Nigeria, not just in Africa, across the world. Where or what is the missing link? We can translate every picture, like Vivian was painting a picture of all of these. We can translate that into the reality of, or the dream, or the Nigerian dream, if there is a Nigerian dream, but translating it to something that will mean so much. We see Rwanda, we see Tanzania, we see some of these countries transform within a generation. But we are still here over so many generations. So is it whether we're moving up, no one knows. Whether we're going down, no one knows. Where is the missing link, really?
Let me start by saying that there is something is fundamentally wrong with our structure, with our system, and with the way we do things. So with regards to, let me start with the foreign exchange. So you find out that when we receive dollars, the CBN, we change the dollars into Naira and now share it across the federal, state, and local government. Immediately after sharing it, most of the Naira that they've allocated will be turned back into dollars again. And the pressure will now continue to be on Naira and the importation as well. So for us to get a stable exchange rate, we need to rethink the way we manage the money that we receive. So when you now talk about too much money in circulation, CBN will now start issuing treasury bills to mop up that money in circulation. And when they mop up the money in circulation, another dollar coming, we still share it. The importers will now start. So something is, it's not working. What with regards to your question, you know, when you're expecting white and you mix green and yellow, it will not give you white. Well, that's something about Nigeria. So what we are using, so in terms of our institutional makeup, it doesn't suit who we are as a person. So what I'm trying to explain, if you bring it down in detail, is that we have a system of government that is not suitable to who we are as a people. We have a system of economic management that is not suitable to who we are as a people.
What you're saying, in effect, is that whatever policies we put in place do not handle or fix our peculiarities.
Yeah,
challenges. And that really is where the problem is. So how do we fix these fundamentals in such a way that will reflect our peculiar needs?
Yes. So let me, for instance, there's something they call 4 levels of social analysis.
Okay.
So the first one is your level of social embeddedness. Then the second level is your institutional level. Then the third level is your governance level. And the last one is resource control.
Okay, break it down for us.
Yes, so I want to break it down. So, for instance, we are what is called a plural society. A plural society is a society where you have too many groups, tribal groups, and also. So in Nigeria, we have about 250 ethnic groups.
Contending forces.
Contending forces. And these 250 ethnic groups means 250 legal systems. Norms and values are, when you document them, it becomes your legal system. But we are now told, don't worry about all this, your individual, respective legal system. Use a formal adopted English legal system. But without proper integration of the different different ethnic groups. So it becomes very, very difficult for the people to believe in one another, and that is what we call social capital. So there is no social trust in the system. And because there is no social trust in the system, and the last level is governance, that means that whatever you do and you control the governance, you can now allocate the resources of the people the way you want. So unless we get a synergy between that social embeddedness and the formal governance system that we have, there's a challenge. So a typical example is when we're electing a governor, for example, or a president. They had so much acrimony, so much violence, so much crisis. But when you're electing Oba of Lagos, Oni of Ife, Oba of Benin, Obi of Onitsha, you don't experience this kind of violence and crisis. The reason is because now the election of the Obas and traditional rulers are in line with our social embeddedness of who we are, in line with our norms and values. But the election of governors, presidents, senators, we use the formal legal system, which we don't accept, which we don't believe in, which we not internalize,
which we suspect sometimes.
Which we suspect, and that's why the compliance is very, very low.
And converging all of this,
exactly, crisis
is a major problem.
Is a major problem, and that is why you find out that rule of law in Nigeria has been consistently low. Regulatory quality has been low. Government effectiveness has been low because we are using the formal legal system to do all these things.
Okay, Vivian, the issues of the value of the Naira, what implication will it have if NARAS is allowed to find its own level? Now, there was that debate sometime earlier in the year or sometime last year when they were talking about the possibility of allowing the Naira to float, find its own level, but others to say if you do that, you're going to have maybe over 1,000 Naira to $1 and all of that. But
if not more.
If not more. But if we do that, what implication would it have?
Shock. Upheaval.
Okay.
However, if done right, hope, redemption.
Okay.
And let me just go a bit deeper. You know, we can't continue like this. You know, all these bit interventions. Where one oil price fall away from a financial catastrophe. I don't want to say crisis, because when you say crisis, it's too mild. yes. Let me be honest with you. The truth of it is, government reserves. You know. When I read about government reserves, when you just said 40-something billion, I say it's true. Alibaba sold 30 billion in one day.
Yes.
They sold 10 billion in 10 minutes.
China is 3 trillion.
So when you start to talk about foreign reserves, 40 billion. I said, we're not serious people in this country, and we're 200 million
Nigerians. Mexico is 3-something.
So, like I said, catastrophe is staring all of us in the face. And I each time I read it, I said, I just pray that we pull back from the abyss. And to go back to your question.
Yes.
To go back to your question, yes, floating the Naira will be catastrophic if not done right. However, if done well, it will redeem us.
So what do we need to do it well?
Very good. You know, it's only, I'm happy he's from the Lagos Business School. And academia, there's something we call scenario planning.
Yes.
There's something we'll call simulation.
Yes.
You simulate events.
I see the
If
effects.
there's something we'll call war games, where people sit in a room
Exactly.
and all you're doing is that you're putting certain indicators together. And this
Creating
day,
seniorios.
precisely, and
To know the
you know, to
possible
know what will
effects. Have an
happen.
idea of
And
the
thank God
outcome.
these days
Yes.
technology has made it so easy for you to do these things. You can actually create the scenarios and start to say, okay, fine. You know, certain underlying assumptions have already been put in place, which rest on what we have now. If we do this, what happens to manufacturing? If we do this, what happens to school fees? Because don't forget that school fees is a big issue because of social crisis and stuff, and public perception. We can't have our kids stranded. If we do this, what happens to medical tourism? Now, once you've done the war games, you now start to plan. Okay, fine. We'll lose here, but we'll gain here. See,
based on our present realities now, and all the different factors that you've talked about already, enumerated, what are those things that we need to put in place as quickly as possible so that we can come back from the brink?
I wish we could fix power, and I will explain why I said I wish we could fix power. What happens, why 41 items? When you talked about the ban on 41 items, I thought a lot of things ran through my mind because I remember what happened then. I remember that I went for a certain conference and I handed over a gentleman next to me. I gave him my card and he saw business consultant, business plans and blah, blah, blah. And he now said, oh, look, we need to talk. Oh, blah, 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 we need to talk. And he was so frantic. And I said, you know, what's it? Maybe we could just talk now. He said, we're into tomato paste manufacturing, and we're on the list of banned items because government believes that they can, tomatoes are being wasted in Nigeria, they're rotting in the fields during the harvest periods. Why should anybody be importing tomato paste? So what they're trying to do, they were trying to backward integrate to see whether they could get, because normally what manufacturers do who sell tomato in sachets and co is that they import the paste itself. It's imported
just repackage
and just repackage and rebag, basically. Now, I'm giving you this as an example so that you realize the magnitude of the problem. When he now said to me, he said, look, we want to do it right and see whether we can source tomatoes locally in Nigeria, which it's a no-brainer. It's a win-win for everybody. It gets cheaper and blah, 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 blah. And then what happened? When we started the discussion, I noticed that they started getting cold feet. Because suddenly the rumors started trickling in that they were going to review and revisit the ban, and then they started asking themselves if the Dangote manufacturing thing was limping. How, people that have very deep pockets, how do they think they can be able to overcome this? And I tell you, if you look at the issues in the Nigerian supply chain for raw materials, we can't even begin to talk about it here. But the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of those issues have to do with preservation. A lot of those issues have to do with a hygiene management system where if there's an outbreak of salmonella or any other disease, you can trace it exactly to the farm where it originated and shut it down. Now, we don't have a cold chain system in Nigeria. It's almost non-existent. And that is why from the time food is harvested to the time it gets to your table, about 60% of that food is lost. So if you don't have a supply chain that works, how do you begin to talk about reducing the amount of important component that goes into your factories? So what now happens is that they're importing this stuff, hitting your foreign exchange reserves, putting the pressure on the Naira, and it goes on and on. Now, look at medical tourism. We have the most brilliant doctors in the world. Nigerian doctors are so bad that a child had a problem in a mother's belly. The guy brought it out and put it back.
And put it back, exactly.
That's how bad we are.
Bad in the right way.
So when you look at it, and then you look at the not dismal, the horrible state of our medical system.
So obviously our problem is very, very environmental.
Precisely.
It is
peculiar
the environment. It's peculiar to us. So how do we really move on from here? I mean, we've had experts who talk about the the non-convergence between the fiscal and monetary policy as a major challenge too. But take it from what she has said, how do you now capture that chain, that weak link? How do you strengthen it in a way that it will rub off positively on the economy?
I think that first of all, we need to properly identify what we can do in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term. In the short term, I think that we can look and say, okay, we normally get about $20-something billion from Nigerians in diaspora.
Yes,
can we better manage about $22 billion every year? Can we better manage it to help us to reduce the exchange rate volatility? We have about 15 million Nigerians in diaspora. who crave and who look forward to eating Nigerian food every day. Is it possible for us to have a system, 3 months, 4 months, that can help us to get these foods to them? So for instance, if you go to Louisiana, many Nigerians, they always look for plantain. But at the end of the day, they eat sweet potatoes as a substitute for plantain.
Yes.
If you go to UK, for example, the okra consumed, the vegetable consumed, they get it from Pakistan and India. The banana, they get it from Peru, Argentina, Bolivia, and these countries are about 16 hours flight to UK. But Nigeria is about
5-6 hours.
5-6 hours. And the main reason why Nigerians don't export to UK and US and other is that we don't have international standard packaging center anywhere in Nigeria. So if we can even get 3 of them in 3 key airports, or even in the 6, we have 6 regions in Nigeria. So let's get 1 standard packaging center in each of the regions.
Okay, the issue of multiple window when it comes to foreign exchange. The official rate is said is 305 or 306 naira to a dollar. When you go into the parallel market, the prices are different. The pilgrim window is also different, and all of that. What implication is that having on the foreign exchange market?
First, the implication is that people are leveraging on these gaps.
Okay.
And of course, if I can buy 360 and I can sell 365, that means I'm making 5 naira or 4 naira, depends on the commission you pay. So it's not good. However, there has been a kind of gradual convergence, which is encouraging, which should be sustained and which should be supported. But the ultimate goal should be to have an exchange rate that is very transparent, that people can know exactly what they're getting, and that supports especially the manufacturing sector of the economy, so that we can actually move away from being an import-dependent economy to an export-oriented economy. So unless we do that, then the multiple exchange rates that we have, is not good for the economy, in the sense that you can get from here, you can sell there, you can buy from there. It depends, even though that CBN is trying to create a kind of transparency or accountability, so that when you get from here, it might be difficult for you to leverage on the different multiple. But the ultimate goal should be to have a convergence or an exchange rate that if I am sitting in my house and I want to buy exchange rate, I exactly know what the exchange rate is, that I don't have to check all the different multiple exchange rates. So if I want to buy dollars now, or pounds in the UK, or euros, if I'm in the UK, I know exactly what the exchange rate will be. So as I said, the ultimate goal should be for convergence. But what we should do is to see how we can support our manufacturing sector so that we can start exporting. Unless we start exporting, unless we reduce our demand for foreign exchange in terms of fuel, in terms of education, in terms of other ones that we import, we will continue to be in this problem.
And this is not rocket science. I mean, many people have, asked the fundamental question or raised the issue of how much depth in terms of knowledge that those who handle our economy actually have. Is that what really is missing here? Because, I mean, all the things that both of you have laid out, yes, they're, I mean, just like I said, it's not rocket science, and then that's on the one hand. We have this currency swap deal with China, and a lot of people have raised issues as to how this is not a deal between 2 equals. I mean, China is a huge manufacturing country that, push out its finished product. But we will be, taking raw materials, raw products out. So how is that even going to benefit us, especially when we talk about, our Forex
challenges?
Yes, challenges. Vivian?
I read about maybe let me first of all go back to this, when you said these things were saying it's not rocket science, and how come people... I've watched very brilliant people go into government, people I have so much respect for. People who, I mean, you talk to them, you're amazed one-on-one. But then when you look at what comes out, outputs, vis-a-vis what they can do, you start to wonder what happened.
Are there external forces
or did they
that want to ensure that, just imagine a scenario where Nigeria actually is where it should be ideally. We have all our refineries are working and all of that, which means we will not be importing petroleum products and all of that. Some are saying there is a possibility that those countries where we buy the,
Now we own the refineries.
and that's where I'm going back to. Something starts to tell you, because anywhere you see a problem that looks common, but yet it cannot be fixed, you start to suspect that somebody's making sure that it's not fixed. And then maybe these very brilliant people are not able to overpower those forces. They're trying to make sure they're not fixed. That's one thing. But these are speculations.
Yes.
Because in the end, when you look at the whole medical tourism in Nigeria thing, and you look at the history again of India, I believe very much in case studies. There's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing you're going through that somebody else has not gone through. So why don't you just shorten your own going through hell period by learning from somebody else? If you look at the story of India, how India became from third world country to medical tourism capital of the world.
Especially when you consider too that Nigeria used to be a medical tourism
precisely
destination.
So when you look at it, it was just a simple government policy. Said we'll give grants in form of land, in form of this, if you achieve this. And then you now had an explosion.
Incentives.
All right. I wish we had time to really dwell on this, because this is a very interesting topic that people would like to key into and, watch and keep watching. Vivian Ani, business consultant, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
And Franklin Ngu of the Lagos Business School, thank you so much for coming as well.
Thank you for having me.
Very much.
Thank you.
We hope to have other times to discuss more on this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right.